Inconsistencies between the house at the end and Toy Story 2. So when you look at the house at the very end of the movie, just like mainly this open shot, you can tell it looks pretty different from how it does in Toy Story 2. Now at first in Toy Story 2, it looks like it's the same house but just with more detail, and it's more clear that it's bricks, it's more ambiguous if it's that or wood or whatever in Toy Story 1. But if you look closer, you can also see that the front door is totally different. That, and in Toy Story 1, it looks more weird, like it's completely isolated in a super, like, rural and empty area, and there's those cheap little wooden fences just randomly thrown about. Those aren't in Toy Story 2, and Toy Story 2, it's much more clear that it's more suburban, that they actually have neighbors and stuff like that, and it doesn't help that it takes place in the middle of a shitty winter in Toy Story 1, while 2, it's summer, and I don't know, if you just look more closely, you can also see that, like, the wallpaper inside is different at times, and I'm sure there's just plenty of other little details that you can find between the two. Everything Woody did was egregiously poorly planned out. So this one was really fun to explain when I was first asked about it after posting this chart, but this has to do with how just every decision Woody makes in this movie up until the climax where they free Buzz is just so poorly planned and idiotic. Like, there's stuff like pushing Buzz out of the window in the first place is like the big one, but like, I mean, that's a bit more like credentials and stuff, but I mean, there's the pizza plant truck and how he rides in the back and gets hurt, but the big one that did for me want to put on here is when he sees the other toys next door from Sid's room and asks them for help, and instead of just simply telling them that Buzz is with him but needs their help, he instead takes his severed arm and pretends to be him in a poor factor, and what would he done after they let him cross and they see he just has Buzz's arm? Like, what would have happened then, Woody? And this is the guy who is supposed to be, like, the leader of the toys and organize everything, but this is how he thinks? You dumb, stupid, wimpy cowboy doll. Andy's mom is a widow. I alluded to this too in the second layer, and this apparently is official word that was given on where Andy's dad is, being that he passed away and Andy's mom is a recent widow. It's hard to tell in the movie because they seem fine, and as I said, like, she seems to be doing okay, Andy seems happy and stuff like that, especially if it happened near his birthday, but I don't know, maybe that's part of the point, and if you want to go more into it, I guess you could also see that's why they have to move, and I talked about it more in the second layer, so I won't go into it here as much, but again, that's a pretty depressing reason, especially if you think the house doesn't look as good and the one that they move into, but I don't know, maybe there's nicer reasons for it, maybe it's just closer to work and other convenient places, like we did see one that they have to drive a bit to get to areas in their section of the woods, but I don't know, they also do like garage sales while they're at the 1 and 2, I mean, maybe they fucking like their neighborhood and neighbors there better to do that, and maybe they're just tired of living next to Sid's family, and I don't know, at the same time you could maybe see like, well, maybe they're doing a garage sale because they really need the money, but I don't know, it's just too depressing and shit to think about. Let's move on. 1991 Toys R Us commercial. This is something that Pixar made before Toy Story, which put them on the map. And does any of the stuff look familiar to you? Any of it? Well, the models ended up getting reused in Toy Story 1 and 2, which is why they should look familiar, like the dolls and the bears on Andy's shelf, and over here you can even see the colored ring stacking toy, I don't know what it's called, that Andy's mom disgustingly sells in Toy Story 2 without saying anything to Andy. Did Scud make it home okay? So this is a thought I've had while making this and just watching the movie, but as we know, Scud ran quite a distance away from home at the speed of a truck. And, of course, at the end, he ends up getting stuck in between all these cars and traffic, just narrowly avoiding getting hurt. But that has to make you think, did Scud make it home okay? I mean, you have to hope so, as Sid needs him, and, you know, it's one of the things that Sid's got. All he has is his doggy. And, like, I mean, he has a collar, so I don't know if his tag has, like, the home info like you would expect or anything like that, but I don't know, it's hard to say if, like, because they had to move Scud off the way, obviously, but like who took him after that, or did they just let him run off? Is Scud intelligent enough and able to get home on his own? Did he do that? And I don't know, we talked about how fucked up Sid's family seems to be, like would his parents even care or notice? Merch of obscure characters. Our favorite characters are back, and look at this, because they got merchandise back in the day. Now, the one that's like the most obvious and from a character that's not so obscure is Rocky. He has this figure that's a lot. The pattern here, and part of the point why I put this on here, is that it costs hundreds of dollars, and yeah, get ready to see that more. This one's at least complete in box, but it's going to get even worse from here on out, and I mean, the Mutant Toys got some stuff, but they're not too obscure. Here's my favorite, Snake and Robot, and you can get these two little obscure figures loose for the low price of $300, and Hockey Puck got one, and it's just about as worse. I hate people. Sid's dad is a failed musician, so this is a kind of obscure theory, but an interesting one that I heard about that has to do with one detail, being that in the scene I already talked about with his dad, you can see that there's a guitar that's just sadly and softly slumped against the TV alone, and also there are stacks of what might be a bunch of CDs that are just completely extra and abundant. And that alone has made people think that he tried being a musician, but he failed, and he just gave up on everything after that. Now he just sits on the couch like a stupid, slobby drunk, and hits his dog, and neglects his kids, and watches stuff of Buzz Lightyear commercials and drinks, and what an asshole. I mean, maybe he was already an asshole when he was trying to do music, and maybe that's part of why he failed. Who knows? Just poor Sid and Hannah and Scud. Well, that was kind of cynical, but next up we're going to be going down to the next layer, which also is kind of like that, but maybe a bit more interesting.